Hello friends, welcome back here to Brixen. Nicky here. Second World Cup ever in Brixton, supported and sponsored by Climb Poles and High Five, the Australian-Italian hole distributor which sponsors this competition, sent me down here to give you a little bit of a story, to show you what's happening behind the scenes while setting. And I cannot show you any setting footage today, so I will answer a few questions you sent me via Instagram and YouTube, and other people asked me about how the whole comp works out and how the setting goes. So in total it's 36 boulders, 8 final boulders, 8 semi-final boulders, and twice 10 qualification boulders, 5 qualification boulders for each group. Each category gets split into 2 qualification groups. Behind the camera over there, they are setting right now the women's qualification boulders, and they got 200 wooden plywood volume macros, 300 fiberglass macros, and more than 2,000 holes and jibs for 36 boulders, which sounds like massive, but especially when it comes to comp setting, there are a lot of limitations and restrictions. One is the time. They started Sunday with setting male and female finals at the same time, and we're done with it by Monday noon. Strip the walls, start setting semi-finals. They were done and properly tested and stripped by Tuesday evening, and then yesterday was setting 2 groups of male qualification boulders, and today, as mentioned before, they are setting the women's qualification boulders. And for example, today they're going to be done by 8 p.m. because then there's like a movie screening. And when it comes to the qualification boulders, they try to kind of mirror at least like the styles of qualification group A to qualification group B. So it doesn't matter in which group you end up. This is the plan. It doesn't always work out perfectly that you're climbing the same boulders, or at least like same styles and the same difficulty, to proceed into the semi-finals. The setters can only use IFSC licensed brands, whole brands and volume brands for this competition, and this year High Five provided them with 6 different ones, for example Squadra, Lapis and Axis. So there's everything what the setters need and might need to set like great boulders. So the setting team, 6 setters this year: Chief Matthias Wojcek from Austria, Tsukuru Hori, another IFSC setter. Jamie Cassidy had to cancel last second, unfortunately, an IFSC setter from the UK. We are missing out on this. But the Italian Federation sent 4 setters of their own. No, 3 setters. Let me evaluate. There's Marco Kirsch from Arco, Riccardo Capraseca from Rome, and Stefan Scaperi. Those 3 were setting last year as well. And then there's Anna Borella via the IFSC Diversity program, also from Italy, setting and living around Milan. And because those 3 and Anna set like many years already with the other 3 Italian setters, were so used to the wall, Matthias was happy with the crew, so only 6 setters. Hannes, the local chief setter of the wall, and I were trying to help out as much as possible, testing, carrying holes and volumes around, stripping walls, marking boulders. So let's get into your questions, and I'll try to come up with some answers. For these answers, of course, I asked the setters as well about their opinions, and I've been to many competitions and them as well, and so I'm trying to compare comp setting and commercial setting when it comes to some of the questions. Question 1. Are there restrictions regarding techniques that are officially prohibited, like down jumps? Yes, everything what's dangerous, for example a down jump for your shoulders or for your feet, is forbidden rule-wise, and everything in general what's dangerous or risky for the health of any climber is not cool, so they don't set it. It's also kind of like important to watch out that it's easy to judge and to score. We have the judges, they are coming in later and tomorrow. They don't see how the boulders work. Competitors don't see it as well. So the starting positions have to be like quite obvious, but also obvious to judge for the judges and to see, okay, this is a valid attempt, this was a failed start, this was a valid zone, so the competitor had the zone, got the bonus zone. Yeah, you know it, I'm always confusing this. So I think everything what's harmful and dangerous is forbidden in a competition. This, of course, is sometimes up to the setters and into this leads up to discussions between the setters and the judging team. For example, 2 weeks ago in Salt Lake, as far as I know, there was some boulders in the final which was considered dangerous by the judges. So the setting team had, I think the crew said like 30 minutes or 40 minutes to change the start. And after each round there's a resetting period, so the setters have some time to put the boulders back onto the wall. There are markings on the wall where the holes belong, and the setters come up with tweaks anyway, like if something is a little bit easier or a little bit harder, and they look back on the previous rounds and then they do the tweaks. Sometimes they are testing the tweaks. For example, on Friday night there might probably be a night session, because on Friday there will be women's qualifications, then male qualification. On Saturday we start with the women's semis and finals. So they will put up the semi-finals Friday night behind a curtain, so no competitor can see it. And then they will probably take a look at the qualification results. Some of the qualification bowlers are roughly same style difficulty, so they get a feeling for how difficult the semi-final is, and then they can adjust a few moves or a few boulders. But when it comes to dangerous stuff and they gotta adjust it because the judges say so, then the time frame is pretty limited. You can take a look at my last year's episode about the boulder number 3 or 4. Marcus read boulder in the women's final, which got to be reset, the upper part, 1 hour before the final started. That was really thrilling, but it worked out in the end. Mostly it works out, but yeah, let's see how it works out this year, but nothing dangerous. Question number 2. When selecting holes, how does it work? Fastest hands win? Not really. It's a team effort. So the whole setting team sits together beforehand. They know all the holes. We had all the holes in front of the wall, the rest in the hole storage over there. So they know they see all the big plywood, all the big volumes. And of course, they try to come up with a rough plan of styles. The order wasn't fixed yet this year, which is really interesting. Might change a little bit before the finals. Let's see how this turns out, or whether it changes at all. But it's a team effort. Everyone says like, okay, I'd like to set with those volumes. And then everyone is like, yeah, I had an idea for these holes. Can we talk about it? And then it's just a lot of communication. Communication and teamwork are the key here to have a fun and successful comp. So it's not fastest hand wins. It should never be like this. Even in a commercial setting, talk to your teammates, to your co-setters. It's really important. Question number 3. This is a tough one and really philosophical at some point probably. What can be done to improve the quality selection process of setters? So as far as I know, the IFSC sends 3 IFSC setters to each event. And then the local host, or the local federation in this case the Italian FISA, sends 3 of their own local setters, so it's at least always 6 setters, sometimes it's even more if an IFSC setter brings a protege or an apprentice to get into the World Cup circuit. But it comes back to the question, what's a good route setter, what are you looking forward in a team? Sometimes I've seen it in a setting that the team doesn't know each other that well on day number 1, and then on day number 2 they get to know each other. There can be some friction, sometimes the teamwork is amazing, sometimes it turns out into a big fight of visions and styles and attitudes. So it's difficult to put this into words. Maybe it's a little bit easier to answer this question with the next question. Why are there so few women in route setting? Also a question which I can't answer without my personal opinion. So we got really old structures, especially for the IFSC licensing. There are a lot of older setters or setters who do it for a long time, and as long as they have their license, newer setters don't come up. There are programs like the diversity program, which is kind of planned to get newer setters in from other countries, more women as well. But there's not a clear path, as I understood it, that the diversity program setters automatically become IFSC licensed setters. And how this works out, it's difficult to say, because I even don't know who to talk to of the IFSC. For sure there's no one around here who has the answer for this. But what would be good is to get more women onto the competition stage, is if the IFSC would step forward and force themselves in every federation at least to provide one female setter. So the IFSC always has to provide one female setter, and the national federation has to provide one female setter. So there should be at least like at every event 2 women in the setting team. Otherwise, we will never progress any forward at all. It's not up to me to change it. As mentioned before, I don't know who from the IFSC is really responsible for this. Everyone is saying, okay, we want to increase diversity and get more women into setting. But I guess it's a little bit like the IFSC is like, okay, the national federations have to provide us with setters, but they cannot do this. So they created this diversity program. But on the other hand, we really got to force people for the change. And then it's like top, bottom, bottom to the top. And yeah, that's an answer. That's not really an answer, right? So I'm sorry for that. I got in my mind to do an episode about this, to talk more about women, about how they got into setting and how they got into comp setting. It's really cool that Anna is here. In another episode, I will talk with Anna a little bit about her life as a setter and what she's doing here. So look forward how she sets a boulder and how she got here into the diversity program, or how she set a boulder here at Brixen. I think we are at question number 5. Is there a code of conduct for work safety taking into account the role model aspect in media? Okay, first I gotta say something private about this. I think I'm still learning and experiencing how much of an impact we setters have on Instagram, YouTube as a role model. Because we just learned setting. It used to be Wild Wild West, and then of course like there are a lot of like rules and a lot of like safety guidelines, and there are norms for the holes and for the volumes and for the walls and how to properly safely attach stuff onto the wall. But looking back, I haven't been aware like for a long time that it's not cool to post of myself like pictures and Birkenstocks or thongs and just like smashing volumes onto the wall. You learn with mistakes, so I'm trying to be more aware of that. Looking at this World Cup, I gotta say World Cup setting is high level pressure setting under pressure, because there are time limitations and you have hole limitations, wall limitations. It's not a perfect environment to play around and to do stuff 100% safe. There's always like a little bit of a risk for setting in the results, but also in kind of like the working attitude. So as a gym owner, I've seen like screws flying around everywhere. Sometimes volumes were only attached by 2 screws, which is never safe in a commercial or comp environment. They only do this for testing. When the boulders are on the wall, everything is properly safely attached. But if sometimes are only like millimeter tweaks are needed, and then they only put 2 or 3 screws in for the testing process. It's not up to me to say whether this is like properly safe or not. Nothing happened here, nothing happened yet, but I'm pretty sure like at some point something will happen to any one of us, and then the big question will be raised: how safe are your working methods? Another point is probably there has been a lot of bricolage, a lot of jibbing, plastic on plastic, which is never up to the whole manufacturer's installation manual. So you got to be aware, especially in a commercial environment, that you're never on the safe side. If something happens, you're properly screwed, because it's up to you to put holes properly safe onto the wall. You can do it, it's all up to you, but always inform yourself about the gym policy if you are allowed to do this, because you're also destroying property, you're destroying holes sooner or later. We will see a lot of bricolage here just to make something work really fast and force it. For comp setting, it's always about forcing moves. So there's jibbing, there's blocking of holes, there's a lot of stuff going on, which shouldn't be the case in a commercial gym. On a World Cup stage, on the other hand, they know it's only 40 competitors, maximum in one group, maybe 40, 50, whatever, climbing on one boulder, and it'll last, and then they will take it down again. I don't want to speak for the whole group, but I think maybe as setters, we all should be more aware of like how we present ourselves in front of the camera. I try to be really open and realistic here. Some of this working stuff here wouldn't fly in my gym, but it flies here on a World Cup stage, competition setting, under pressure. So let's see how this turns out. Does it answer your question? Next question. What is the head setter's strategy regarding guidance? How much input do they give? Head setter comes up with a team. Together they created a plan for the rounds, for the finals, and they want to show as much diversity and as much different climbing techniques, abilities as possible to give the athletes the chance, the opportunity to present themselves for a good show, a good ranking, a good split. This is always like ranking result first, then a good show for the audience and also for the athletes to force them to show all their skills and abilities in a climbing competition. So usually it's a slab, something technical, coordination, power, a mix like this. We got this here in Brixen as well, but when it comes to Brixen, the comp wall doesn't have any slabby part. There are only 2 side walls which are slabby, but they cannot be used due to the camera restrictions in the finals, so they will only be used in the qualification rounds. So creating a balancy, techy slab in Brixen for the finals or semi-finals is incredibly difficult. They tried to do this and they tried to achieve it. You will see this, but it's always up to the limitations of the walls, and this wall is just pretty powerful. So Brixen has a lot of biceps, a lot of triceps, a lot of tension, a lot of action. It's a little bit more straightforward, not that much slowly balancing on the slabs, but they tried to get this done as far as possible. So the guidance is quite clear. Everyone knows what they have to set, what kind of style, and also they talk about how many tops they kind of expect each bowler to have. They don't discuss about any font grades, about any grading or RAC scale. It's more or less like, okay, we want to have like 2 tops for bowler number 3, 4 tops for bowler number 4, for example, stuff like this. Then in the discussions, they try to guess. It's experience, educated guessing what's going on at the end of the day. It's not a perfect science, so let's see how this turns out. But there is guidance, and there's also quite clear like orders which problem is supposed to be set. Some head setters are pretty planned out. They say like, I want to see 4 climbers getting to the zone and only 1 to the top. Whether this works or not, it's always a little bit of a gamble, and some teams work pretty well with a strict guidance. This team has like a whole team effort from the beginning towards the end. They discuss about each round all together, how they feel, how they see it. They compare to last year's, they compare to 2 weeks ago, to the World Cups they set already this year, and the other competitions which happened at this wall. So, team effort. Question, whatever. Is it possible to bring a setter of the past World Cup to the upcoming World Cup to find the level better? We discussed about this last year in a team that would be like really good to do this. It's not written in the rules as far as I know, but we got Tsukuru here, for example, who said 2 weeks ago in Salt Lake, so he can compare the difficulties a little bit, but it also changed again, like condition-wise. Started setting on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday were quite windy and raining and grey, but now for the qualification today and yesterday, it's just blazing sun. So it's difficult, and tomorrow again, like blazing sun on Saturday, Sunday as well. So getting the difficulties right when there's like friction problems is not easy. But it's not written on in the rules to get another setter who said before, but we're lucky to have one now with us. My opinion on power style and its problematics. What are advantages of new school style? Okay, power style, probably you mean like a little bit more basic pulling, easier to read, and less risky moves to commit and to execute, while new school boulder, you mean probably more dynamic. More dynamic bowlers are probably used, more dynamic and insecure bowlers are probably used to have like a better split, a better ranking, to get more attempts out of the competitors and to maybe make them insecure. It also heavily depends on the order, whether you want to make them insecure with a really techy slap and then the confidence drops. Anyway, power bowlers are probably sometimes a little bit more difficult to guess the difficulty because the competitors are sometimes incredibly strong and sometimes they just cruise through problems where setters had a lot of problems with. It's, as mentioned before, always a little bit up to guessing and thinking about, okay, I felt really good on this day. I was rested and the power problem was really easy for me. Maybe it's semi-difficult now for the other setters or other competitors. My personal opinion is I don't even have a opinion anymore. I want to see everything. Yeah. But on the other hand, I like to set a competition once or maybe a qualification round to throw all the competitors up off only with slabs. Apparently that's not allowed anymore. But my personal opinion is, and that's what I've been asked for, good mix is always good, and especially the power problems here in Brixen, champagne. Does the IFSC dictate any problem styles for the chief route setters to achieve? A friend of mine, Igor, shoutouts to you, sent me the guidelines. You can find them somewhere. Maybe I can add the link in the description. I will forget it again. But they are like some key objectives to create a safe and fair playing field for competitors that includes a diversity of climbing styles and may challenge various climbing abilities. Blah, 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 blah. Competitors are ranked effectively and with a final result that minimizes tight scores. In boulder, with a good spread on number of tops achieved, total number of tops should be between 34 to 46 tops in qualification round, 23 to 31 in semifinals, and between 13 to 20 in the finals. To maintain as a primary objective the balance of the above functional goals with a focus on creating climbs, movements that both a spectating audience and competitors may find interesting and results in an exciting competition experience. So the IFSC just asks for a pretty diverse field of climbs, array of climbs and movements and motions. Maybe there's more written in it, but like it's really hard to define what's a slab, what's a technical boulder. So the setters are up to create these challenges on their own, and they try to come out with a mix, and they always try to do this while still like having a good show. So in the past I've criticized some competitions for being too dynamic. Let's see what happens now. How will the two-zone format that is coming change problems? As far as I know, the two-zone format is only for the Olympic qualification events and the Olympic Games to make it more obvious for the audience, even though it's still confusing at some point. But anyway, I complained in the past that the Olympics have too much of an impact on the normal World Cup stage. For example, here in Brixton, a few competitors are skipping Brixen to go next week to Innsbruck. So as far as I know, not too much, but I should have talked to some route setters who had to work in this format. I will follow up on this one. How is the difficulty of each climb approved? Are grades different for qualifications, semi-finals? Yes, they are. You gotta imagine qualification group, 50 starters. You gotta get 20 of those into the finals. Semi-finals, out of 20 semi-finals, only 6 go into the finals. I think here the semi-final is the most difficult round, even though the final problems are pretty hard. But it's also like 3 times a different format. Qualifications, you go out, have 5 minutes on your own without observation time, and go left to right. And I think it's similar to semi-final, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. But the qualification round in the beginning is a little bit easier than semi-final, but then I think the 2 hard problems out of the 5 are pretty difficult because you need to split from 40 competitors to 20. And the semi-final is pretty tough to test the athletes as well for the finals to be able to judge the last adjustments, which will probably happen, yes or no. They don't put grades on it, as mentioned before, so they just play around a little bit with for example, the easiest qualification slabs. I think the slabs, they want to have everyone in zone, but maybe only 20 tops. So this is like how they try to guess the difficulty. No grades at all, just a little bit of guessing. It's the last question. How do trends evolve? Do World Cup route setters set the trend, or are they inspired by gym settings? So Guru got the question as well. He was just like, shrugging. So sometimes people get inspired or they play around a lot in commercial setting and try to force moves or bring it to the next level in a competition, while other people are like, okay, now I can try something really difficult because people are prepared for problem solving in a small amount of time, under pressure on a competition stage. So a lot of times, like, competition moves get to commercial setting, but I also know some moves like which develop kind of like in commercial setting got to the World Cup stage. In the end, it's all pushing and pulling. You got only 4 limbs and parts. So I think all these, like, there's a new move, sometimes a little bit too much for me. Maybe I'm just like really salty old white man complaining about stuff. But I think it goes back and forth, and some setters are only competition setting, some setters are setting commercially and competition. So this is Hannes. So I cannot answer this question really properly with a defined answer. I would say both. It goes back and forth. Some setters like to experiment on a stage, other setters like to experiment at home and then bring it to the World Cup stage. And trends, sometimes it goes back and forth. We had a lot of like schwingelings, I think people call it lambada. Sometimes people get influenced by the previous comps. We try to get like, don't watch too much and be like, okay, this is the final and the semi-final round, and it stands on its own. Cannot really answer this question. I will think about it. I think other people might have other opinions about it. So drop it in the comments, and I hope I could give you a little bit more of an insight here into the World Cup, and you will see more videos in the following days. And after this video I will show you 2 interviews with the organizers here of the competition, because there's a lot of stuff happening. Like when we arrived it was just a climbing wall, and now there's a huge screen. I don't know where this screen goes to. There are cameras, but there are speakers. There's like all this fancy fencing stuff around here. They got the Tribüne, you know, the stage, and there's another tent for the press. There's an isolation zone. There's everything. There's so much stuff. So I talked to 2 organizers. Enjoy. Niki out. Peace. This is crap. Niki out. Bye.